Hello and welcome or welcome back. My name is Caitlin. I'm the one that runs Little Women Creations. Thanks guys so much for checking out my channel. Today I just wanted to sit down and do a crocheting chat with you all. I recently got back from an international trip. My partner and I and his family went to Istanbul, Turkey. So I just wanted to give you guys a little overview of how it went. There was lots of crochet, lots of fiber arts over there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that and then give you guys some travel tips when trying to bring your projects with. During this video, I'm going to be working on some market prep. So I have a 9mm hook with me and Bernat blanket yarn. I'm just working on some pumpkins. This is a pattern that I made myself. It's pretty much just follows the typical pumpkin pattern except just heightened to make it a big and plush. But let's get talking about Turkey. So my partner is half Turkish. He does not speak Turkish very well. I guess he speaks it pretty good. He understands it better than he can speak it. I cannot do either, but that's okay. His dad is fluent. So his dad grew up in Istanbul, Turkey, in a neighborhood called Ayup. And, oh, you got my yarn. And so he grew up in Ayup and then moved to Chicago when he was in his early 20s. So his entire family is still over there, hence why we went to Turkey. So we flew separately from his parents and his sister just because of our work schedules. I was so excited for the plane ride because it's time that I can crochet. I'm practically not forced to crochet, but also it's a 10-hour flight. How can you not do anything else? When we left Chicago, it was in the afternoon, early evening, and then when we got into Turkey, it was 4 o'clock p.m. So I did not want to sleep on the plane. I couldn't sleep on the plane that much just because it was very uncomfortable. We had upgraded to exit row seats, so we did have a little bit more leg room. But still, the seats are so uncomfy. Your like tailbone and back start to hurt. And anyway, so I crocheted. I brought 2 projects with me. So there was one I brought that was specifically for the plane, and I did that because it used 5 different colors. It had a color change every row. And each row was a different stitch. And so I crocheted the Maisie stockings. I'll put it all on the screen for you guys. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I have a friend of mine who went through a couple of surgeries last year, and I wanted to make her something as like a Gatewell gift, but she had her surgeries in the second half of the year, and I was super busy with markets and wasn't able to make them. So she wanted 4 stockings, but I chose 5 colors for her, so I made her 5 stockings. I completed 3 of them through the entirety of the trip, which was pretty cool. So like I said, that was specifically just for the plane because I knew it would be something that I would have to sit and focus on. I would have to have some like yarn management going on. So I brought those. And then the other thing I brought was my Bierstein stockings. So I brought lots of yarn for that, and that was all in my second checked bag. So I wasn't focused on making that on the plane. That was going to be as we were traveling about the city. And then eventually too, I actually worked on them at my partner's grandparents' house because it was so hot in the afternoons when the sun was at its peak. So I would work on it while everyone else was like napping or we were just hanging out. And that's made just with an acrylic yarn. It's really light, it's not that hot. And I did bring the pattern, but I know it pretty much, I pretty much have it memorized. That's what I'm trying to say. So on the way there, I got 1 1/4 of the stockings done. So I got the white one done, and then I got a little bit of the navy blue one done. And I realized before filming this video that I specifically bought an interchangeable light up hook set from Amazon. I had been thinking about getting one anyway. It's been on my wish list for a little bit, and it has not been gifted to me from any of my friends or family, so I just decided to jump on it and get it. It was on sale for $20, and it was the best investment I made for traveling. It worked out great because it had 3 different light settings, so there was high, low, and then off. It came with 9 interchangeable sizes. I used the 5.5 millimeter the entire time. And it was great for the plane, and it actually worked out really well because where we were sitting with the exit row, you had to physically stand up to turn the light off, which isn't that big of a deal, but if I was starting to get drowsy, I don't want to have to stand up and turn the light off. Here I could just click the back of the crochet hook and it would turn off. Hi. So it was just easier for me to have the light up hook. It was just the 2 of us traveling, so we did have someone next to us, and I just kept it on the low light. No one complained about it. And then the other thing is if you're deciding to travel with your hook, your knitting needles, you have to really think about what you're bringing. So like I said, I brought 2 projects with the intent of what they each were for, because the stockings that I were doing used 5 different colors and a different color change every row. I probably should have carried my yarn in between the rows to make it less ends to weave in and things like that, but I ended up just bringing a nail clippers along with me instead of a pair of scissors. If you're in the States and you're traveling domestically, internationally, you are not allowed to bring scissors that extend a certain length, and so that depends on where you're traveling, their rules of what you can bring. It also depends on the flight that you're actually on, so depending on the company you're flying with, they may have different rules, so make sure you check that. But I've brought in nail clippers. This is the 2nd flight that I've gone on that I've used nail clippers, and there's been no problems with it. Another thing too is most sites say that you can bring a hook and or knitting needles, but they need to be in an enclosed bag. My hook came in a nice zipped case, and that's because TSA or the security don't want to hurt themselves with it. So if you have a really sharp pair of needles and they're like, oh, this showed up on the screen, this metal 6-inch long thing, and they touch it, it's just more likely, it's just a safety precaution, that's all. But on top of that too, I would recommend not bringing metal with you, just because then you can avoid them having to look at it. Mine was clearly, it was all plastic, and you could clearly tell it was crochet and a crochet hook set. I have never brought knitting needles on a plane, so unfortunately I can't attest to what would happen if you brought knitting needles on. But again, I would just assume as long as you have a bamboo or a wood set, even some interchangeable metal ones I'm sure would be fine. My partner has accidentally brought in a 3-inch Allen wrench on a plane ride, and they looked at it and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we know what this is, and it was fine. So you might just have to step aside or out of the line and have them dig through your bag if you bring them. But I would opt for some other materialized hook, and definitely bring one that if it is confiscated, you're not too hurt over. So definitely do not bring one of your favorite hooks or needles. I also would recommend bringing a little box of stitch markers or stitch holders, stitch placers, whatever you use. And those you can even just put in like a little Ziploc bag or a little Rubbermaid container. Those are good to use if you set a project down. You can just loop one in your live stitch, especially for crochet, pull it tight, and it holds it in place so you're not losing anything in your project if you're like shoving it back in your carry-on bag or your personal item. I also you could bring, if you're making a garment, definitely bring a tape measure. Bring one of the flimsy ones if you could, which is a little easier to pack. But those are my general just like tips when you're traveling on an airplane. The big one though is scissors. Again, make sure you check before you go if there's a certain size or a length of scissors that you are allowed to take, but I recommend just bringing the nail clippers. It's easy, plus you never know when you could actually use the nail clippers on the trip. But we can dive more into just talking about the trip now. So we hopped on our plane. It was a 10-hour flight. We got to the airport, got through Turkey's. Hey, will you chill? No, puppies need to chill. Goodness. Too high for it. We got through Turkish passport security. We got our visas. We were all ready to go. So his dad and his uncle picked us up from the airport, and we went back to Ayoub. Although we were really tired, we got to see his family. We had some dinner. We stayed up to make sure. That we got switched over to the Istanbul time. So from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, they are 8 hours ahead. So if it's noon here, it is 8 p.m. there, which is a decent enough switch. I mean, that's lunch versus dinner. So the first night was good. We went to our hotel room, and our hotel was great because it had air conditioning. And as hot as it got there, it was great to come back and just have this ice cold room to hang out in. The next day, we just spent it with family. I hadn't brought out my crochet then just because I still was tired and I still wanted to get to know everyone a little better, and I didn't want to be sitting there crocheting. The day after that, we did take a boat to go to some islands in the evening. I thought it was going to be just a quick boat ride. Unfortunately, it was 2 hours there and 2 hours back, so I wish I would have brought my crochet, but it wasn't the end of the world. We had a good time. It was gorgeous weather out, especially in the boat when you had the wind, and yeah, it was good. The next day, we took another boat, and we actually went to the Asian side of Istanbul. So we traveled another an hour and a half to 2 hours again by boat, and this time we ended up in Asia. And I brought my crochet then, so I was able to work on the Bierstein slippers. I ended up making 3 pairs over the entire trip, so that was pretty cool that I was able to get that much done. But I was able to work on it there, and on the way back, my partner and I ended up leaving that night from dinner a little early. We weren't feeling that great, and the heat was just really getting to us. When I say like heat, it was high 80s, low 90s the entire week. There was one day that it was 82 and we were very excited. The dew point was in between 65 and 72, whatever the unit is for dew point. It was very muggy, it was very humid. You felt like you were swimming the entire time. So at that point, the heat had just gotten to us so much that we went and left early to sleep. The next day was the hottest day, I believe, on the trip, and so we just stayed back at his grandparents' house. In the afternoon, I did bring my crochet, and so I worked on some crochet then. We also got to see his grandma brought out some of her crocheted pieces that she's done in the past, and so she used to crochet and knit from what I was told, and she let me keep one of them, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I don't know what I'm going to use it for yet, but it's this really pretty purple and white square. I believe it's like a jasmine stitch. It kind of gives off a little floral pattern. So she let me keep that, and then she had some little booties that she had made for, I believe it was herself. But it was really cool to see that she was also doing this when she was a little younger and had a little more mobility in her hands. And we were able to bond over that even though we don't speak the same language. We had dinner at his grandparents' house almost every night. We had breakfast every morning there. And so it was a lot of just walking over there, hanging out in the afternoon, and then walking back. But for the most part, the last couple days on the trip, we were there for a full 10 days. And we did go to the cisterns in the Grand Bazaar one day. I didn't get any crocheting done then, which was fine. We went to Hagia Sophia and Topkapi, I believe is how they pronounce it. And that was really cool because we got to see the original walls of Constantinople and all of these gorgeous mosques and paintings, and absolutely gorgeous. The city was amazing. It was so pretty. But the cisterns were absolutely stunning going down there. They really played up the Medusa mythology in it, and so that was really fun to see. They had like a cool light show that was going on. But overall, I got a lot of crocheting done during the trip. On the way home, I finished 2 stockings. I did work on the blue one in the hotel one day just because I had been working on the Bierstein slippers the couple days before that I needed something a little different. I'm starting to get tiring with the Bierstein slippers, but, oh, hi, thank you. Can you go down? Thank you. You need to sit. But on the plane ride home, I got the gold stocking done, and then I started the edging for the pink one, but I did not finish it. And overall, it was a really great trip. I definitely am excited to go again. We're trying to go again next year. But the plane ride was brutal, especially the way home when you're just trying to get home. You're excited to get home, and it's an hour longer, so it's 11 hours back. But I was told that I was going to be able to buy a lot of yarn, that there was going to be so many yarn shops, and we found one. I didn't take any videos of it because it was very small, and it wasn't all yarn, so it was just like a little section in the one area. Before the trip though, if you guys remember, if you've seen some of my videos or have been a part of my channel for a bit now, you saw that I was gifted 5 large garbage bags worth of yarn, and that was right before our trip. So I kind of knew that I had a lot of yarn at home, and I didn't really feel the need to have to buy more yarn. But we bought lots of other souvenirs. I saw lots of crochet in some of the local markets, at the Grand Bazaar, some really pretty pieces. There were some at some gift shops on the island we went to also. So it's just really fun to see how international yarn, crochet, knitting really is. We also saw some macrame, but I couldn't tell if that was handmade by someone in Turkey or if it was like mass produced. There were some tops that were also like that as well, where I couldn't tell if they were mass produced or not, and that was just based on the other items in the store and also the quality of the items. It was really, really fun. I really enjoyed the trip. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I was invited. Arai and I have been dating for 3 years now, and so it was really fun to be able to go, and like that was our first international trip together, and that was our first time meeting his Turkish family, so it was really great. In terms of traveling with your crochet again, let me know if you guys have any other tips or thoughts or questions, really. I traveled in March of this year to San Francisco, California, and so I was able to get a little more experience with flying and crochet, and so that one I only made scrunchies with, which were really easy because I just brought a pack of the hair ties that I use and then velvet yarn. And with that yarn, it's so easy to break it, so I didn't even bring a nail clippers, so you just break it on the plane. But this trip I definitely had to plan out more what I was bringing. Thanks so much, guys, for coming to hang out for this little bit of time. Hopefully you enjoyed my videos and my pictures, and I will put a link below for the hooks that I got off of Amazon. Again, I'm really sorry I gave them to my mom because she's traveling to Munich, Germany in the next month, and I don't need them before then because I have so many crochet hooks. So I let her borrow them, but I left them with her this weekend because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to give them to her. But yeah, thanks again so much for coming to hang out. Let me know down below if you have any other questions, if you have any comments about it, maybe a tip that you think I should have mentioned or you want to let other fiber artists know. But I appreciate you all. I will see you all next week. Bye, guys.